Let's talk about the mistakes curve, because once we bring somebody on board, then the training and the excitement comes as far as bringing somebody up, getting them up to speed, right? So the mistakes curve is fairly simple in the sense that it's got a y-axis and it's got an x-axis, just like anyone. The y-axis is time and the x-axis is volume. But what we know in the beginning, whenever somebody else is new, and depending on how new you are, or if you're ever taking on some new excitement, is that whenever you take on that new task, the opportunity to make mistakes is very broad. And often that's where we make the most mistakes, right? Depending on what our skill level or experience. But over time, we learn from those mistakes, right? And as we learn from those mistakes, we get a little bit better, right? And the curve starts to kind of come to a point. And at the top of the point, we have some proficiency, right? So, and this is the natural learning curve for humankind, right? Trial and error, oldest learning tool in the history of mankind. And as long as we're on this path, then we're in the right path. We know we're going to get where we're going to go. Now, the ways to influence this path, you can read a book. You can learn how to, from other sources. For example, you can talk to a coach, you can talk to a business development person, whatever, to make this path, make this curve maybe not quite so tall or maybe not quite so wide. I mean, there's a bit of strategies there. But the one I talk to my clients about, and I want to get your thoughts on, is the failure to learn path, right? Because we do see this. We see this with our clients all the time. We see this with their employees, right? Where the employee, they start out okay, but then they start to make mistakes, right? And they make the same mistake again and again and again. And at that point, they're on this vertical line, right? And then when you're on this vertical line, you never get to proficiency.
Right.
You never get to a particular spot. What's your experience in that with your clients?
Well, we have a similar curve that we use. It's just sideways. What we find is that when you hire a new employee, our feeling is that the employer's responsibility is to really train that employee. You need to hire the right person, and you need to train them in a lot. You need to get them really proficient, at least in their understanding. Then there's a period of time when they're learning, and they may make a few mistakes, and then there's this segment where it goes off into a Y, and the one set of mistakes shows that the employee is incompetent and they need to go. But this group actually learns from their mistakes and starts to improve and get better. And what happens is right at the junction of that Y, some employers wait too long to let the ones go that aren't performing, and they might not provide enough training to the ones as they get up. But the faster those employees can get up, if they continue to get competence, the better off they are. But a lot of employers will sit and just hire somebody and then not talk to them, not train them, not give them the expectations. It's not just a matter of...
Yeah, I call it over-delegate and under-instruct.
Sure. If I have an employee and I want them to do a spreadsheet for me, let's say, I don't want them just to put the numbers on the spreadsheet. I want them to understand what numbers I'm looking for so that they can be a participant in the solution, not just, hey, I did your spreadsheet, how does it look? I want them to really understand the process.
Because then they can add additional value, right? More than just plugging numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right. I want each individual employee to add additional value. I have a program it's just an analysis tool that we call RPE, and it's the return per employee. Return per employee says if you made $100,000 this year and you have 10 employees, each employee returned $10,000.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's distilled even further, and Warren Buffett calls it something multisyllabic, but for us
let's go simple.
It's much easier.
Yeah.
Right? And it's easy to determine if you're adding a new employee, if that employee, for example, is supposed to generate $10,000 for the business, if that doesn't happen relatively quickly,
some period of time,
then it starts to tail off. And so you need to hire the right people, train them to the right thing, train them to the right level, and then make sure that they understand clearly your expectations. And then what you hope is that they're going to engage, you're going to engage, and the learning curve is just going to go off the charts, and they're going to become a huge asset for you. That's the goal. That's what you want to try now.